Hey guys, Old School here, and today I despise anything gray. I'm fine with black and white, but it's kid gray. I despise it as much as it despises me. I will literally puke if I see the color gray. This is the NES, and it showed us that try turning it on and off again was both a tech view and a world view, and also that springs are not trustworthy.
Let's start at the beginning. The year was 1983. Every game in stores was a quality product, like E.T. for the Atari. A game so good they literally buried it! The video game crash was in full swing. Game consoles were radioactive to retailers. It was a dark time if you like joy or shelves filled with non-legally distinct fraud games. Nintendo, previously famous in America for their playing cards, arcades, and letting Donkey Kong climb the legal ladder, decided to try the US market with the Family Computer, or Famicom in Japan. Americans were suspicious since Family Computers sounded like something you buy to file your taxes and accidentally hack the Pentagon. So Nintendo rebranded it as the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES for short, because saying 3 words more than once is exhausting. They bundled the NES with Rob, a plastic robot that did almost nothing but look cool. Rob was a glorified paperweight programmed to play a couple of games slowly. Very slowly. Nintendo essentially said, look, it's not a video game trend, it's a toy. For smart, cultured Americans who love robots and can wait over a minute for anything to happen. Rob was like a real-life friend group, present, but no help with Gyromite. Nintendo smartly avoided calling it a console, using terms like control deck and game packs, and made it look like an appliance because, let's face it, in 1985, America loved VCRs. The NES launched in the New York test market in 1985, then went national after selling well. Within years, 30% of US households were home to an NES. Within years, 30% of US households were home to an NES, meaning the other 70 were probably annoyed at all the My Mario can beat your Atari arguments. And the NES rolled up with a robot, a VCR disguise, a chubby plumber to save the entire home gaming industry. Move over, Batman! The NES was designed to not look like a console because nothing says serious investment like mimicking the machines people already accidentally broke every Thanksgiving. Cartridges were inserted into a front-loading slot with a spring so intense it's probably NASA certified. Push down, click, pray.
Welcome to CES 1985, welcome to the Nintendo booth. We would like to present the Nintendo Entertainment System. That's right, folks. The Nintendo Entertainment System. You can insert the cartridge this way, and you're supposed to plug it in. Now, we're going to tell you to push it down. You don't have to do that. That'll just make people have to modify their systems just so they can put new springs in it because the daggum old ones are so daggum rusty, they fall apart. Just so we can get more money in the end. You know, Nintendo. You know, we started off as gambling. And now we have our patented, yes, we will see you if you dare copy this controller, Sega, and NEC. So, as you can tell, we have sharp corners on the controller to dig into your palms. The D-pad, starts off really great and then ends in thumb calluses. And then, buttons that are really clickable. And probably the only good thing about this controller. But the D-pad is innovative, so that's why people all around the world have thumb calluses. You can thank Nintendo for that. Select and start. They're going to be mushy as heck. And we do not care what you say. But, in response, we will put a pushy feeling at the end of the button. So it feels like it's a good button. But we just bought that off eBay. Very high-tech company that makes rubber. That's it, seal.
By 1990, NES was everywhere. Nintendo became shorthand for video game. Owning one meant being a part of the cool crowd, or at least the crowd with the stickiest controllers. I've already covered the Game Boy, but that was a huge part of why Nintendo was such a big brand afterwards. The NES controller remains a classic. Its D-pad design has influenced almost every controller since. Gamers still buy NES apparel and collectibles, and Mario is probably more recognized globally than historical figures. Retro gaming isn't just trendy, it's a big business, a global, multi-billion-dollar industry. NES nostalgia is so strong that in 2025, 45% of 18 to 24-year-olds have played a retro game in the past year. This isn't just millennial memory lane, it's therapy, I guess, it's bonding, It's the weird urge that compels you to pay $20 for an old cartridge at the flea market, even though you already own it digitally 3 times. The life. Nintendo's not dumb. The NES Classic Edition, a bite-sized NES with built-in games, sold out instantly. People wanted just not the games, but the ritual. Blow in the cartridge, yell at the dog, lose at Battletoads again, repeat. NES games are offered on Nintendo Switch Online. Retro theme music playlists are booming. Even TikTok can't escape pixelated Mario. Sometimes the best NES stories aren't about the games, but the experiences. Floods of posts about NES First Christmases, legendary Mario runs, and other games. Lost cartridges, and parents who learn to play by repeatedly spamming high kick in Mortal Kombat. Yes, Mortal Kombat released on the NES, and 3 other games in that series released on the NES. And yes, they're all horrible on the NES. Shows cover it, YouTube videos just like mine cover it. There are many people online that play every NES game chronologically, and the online communities compete for who still owns the original console. Spoiler, it's always someone named Dave. NES nostalgia is about connection between siblings, friends, and every kid who ever tried to be Metroid before dinner time. You know, it surprised me how many kids have never heard of this nowadays. This really is the reason you own a PS5 or an Xbox Series X today, or a Switch 2 if you're like me. Or actually, if you're like me, just own all 3 of them. However, there are many hardware quirks that go with the system. The blinking red light of doom, another NES ritual. You insert your favorite cartridge, hit the power button, and witness the majestic blinking light that meant nope. Blowing a cartridge is scientifically proven to do nothing. Sometimes, but did it anyway. If you didn't blow, you risk being ostracized from all the NES slumber parties. Pin connector troubles. The central design flaw. Over time, the front-loading spring-based zero insertion force connector would bend and fall. And fail. Cleaning or replacing it was a rite of passage for future engineers. The NES's loading mechanism, the ZIF slot, was meant to mimic a VCR, but led to more bent pins and curse word than most consoles. The lockout chip, intended to stop piracy, only ensured that unlicensed game publishers got sneakier, and that old dirty cart could randomly crash gameplay by not syncing properly. But all this pain, part of the charm. When the new style NES, aka Top Loader, came out, it ditched the VCR look and basically just worked. Only took a decade to admit the original design wasn't perfect. The NES changed gaming, sure, but it also took over pop culture like a plumber in a warp pipe. Funny, because it kinda did do that. Captain N the Game Master, an 80s cartoon where a high school kid gets sucked into an NES world. Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Lou Albino is Mario, and now we all know how to fix a leaky pipe and do to Mario. The Wizard, a feature-length commercial for Super Mario Bros. 3. They sold us on video game competitions in California. NES consoles appeared in sitcoms and inspired merchandise ranging from lunchboxes to pajamas and to fine Halloween costumes for years to come. Arcade and NES sounds became the official soundtrack of every child's orbit, and at least until Game Boys arrived and made us all forget how the outside worked. Yes, before there was iPads, there was Game Boys. The NES featured an 8-bit Rico chip, 2 kilobytes of RAM, because everybody needs the memory of a bored goldfish, and a custom graphics chip capable of 54 glorious colors, many of which were brown. But we can't forget the NES Model 2 released in 1993. This was a vast improvement that made a new model of the NES controller called the Dogbone that rid of the sharp controllers in favor of the round design, which is amazing. It feels great in the hands, but the buttons aren't as good as the first controller. The console, better in everything but the back. Ew! RF? Some consoles were AV modded by Nintendo, but these are super rare. You could get an RF to AV converter on Amazon, or actually not even Amazon anymore. That moved to some website and Walmart if you want to pay $2 more. Anyways, this is still quite the overlook for Nintendo. Remember the controller? The D-pad was revolutionary, the 2-button simplicity legendary, and the sharp corners considered advanced bloodletting technology at their time. The 72-pin connector. This thing was responsible for 90% of all NES troubleshooting. If you see a blinking screen, it's this. Breathe your germs into the cartridge, yell, repeat. The lockout chip. To prevent unlicensed games, which worked, except when it didn't, it also made dirty cartridges randomly crash your game mid-boss battle. The expansion port. On the bottom, used for a total of, let me see, 0 accessories, but it did look pretty cool. Fun fact, the Famicom controller had hardwired controllers and a mic on Player 2's controller, so technically some kids could scream at their games and it wouldn't matter. Once again, the NES also paved the way for Fortnite kids to this day. The NES's library is immense, over 1,376 official games. Even more if you count unlicensed oddities, bootlegs, and those Bible games that disrespected Christianity in every way. I would know, I'm a Christian. And no, please don't play these. Super Mario Bros. Revolutionized platforming. If you can't hum the music, you saw it referenced 1,000 times. The Legend of Zelda. Broad exploration, secrets, and the first ever console battery save feature used so you can actually stave and still be late to dinner. Metroid. Science fiction, non-linear, mind-blowing, difficult. Punch-Out! Pattern-based boxing. If you say Mike Tyson, 1980s parents switch involuntarily. Duck Hunt. That zapper is finally used. And that laughing dog. If you know, you know. Mega Man. Platforming bliss with robot arm cannons. Every game, same plot, new colors, more pain. The Castlevania series. Dracula, whips, and the best chiptunes in the castle. Contra. Run and gun mayhem. The Konami code became famous. Up, up, down, down, left, right, be a star for infinite lives. You're welcome. Dragon Warrior, or if you're not in America, Dragon Quest. RPGs that prove you don't need graphics to have a good time. Just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of random battles. Actually make that thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Kid Icarus. Harder than it should be. Mythic and delightfully odd. Little Samson. No. Tetris and Dr. Mario. Puzzle classics that led to both high scores and controller bites. For every classic, there's a Where's Waldo, or Town and Country Surf Designs, Wood and Water Rage. For every Tecmo Super Bowl, there's a Taboo to 6 cents. But Nintendo taught us that the words exciting and baseball don't always belong together. For the people that traded out Mega Man 2 for Back to the Future and realized they made the worst gaming decision in their life, don't worry, I feel you. I probably would have done the same. Here's some peripherals that released on the NES. The Zapper. You shot stuff on your screen. Rob. You play Gyromite at the speed of toast. Power Glove. We don't talk about the Power Glove. Game Genie. Yeah, you could cheat on your games. For rebels, dreamers, and speedrunners. The Power Pad. Physical activity. Cheating by using hands. The first failed attempt at Wii Fit. 4-score. Playing Gauntlet with more chaos. 3 Friends Max, otherwise Pandemonium. NES Max? No. NES Advantage? Yes, please. Really nicer to your hands. Also, people like me love this controller.
We also have the Power Glove, which I can't show due to some malfunctions. Gaming today. Without this, the video game industry probably would have crashed and very likely burned to death. Maybe there would be like 4 consoles, but not much at all. So, you really should give gratitude to the company that Sony and Microsoft fans make fun of all the time, Nintendo. Because they have some mature games on there, yes. Like Cyberpunk. And Hitman and... But yeah, let's not talk about Devil's Third. Anyways, yeah, there's a reason you can't go into the GameStop without seeing a t-shirt of 8-Bit Link. Now, as we pay our respects, see y'all later.